is Rob Mazzanti. I'm a 2:29 marathon runner. It's still a little surreal to be able to say that. It's a new PR as of earlier this year in January at the Houston Marathon, January 2024. But I started my journey running about 2 years ago. I ran my first marathon in the fall of 2022 at the Richmond Marathon with a time of 2:47. But I'll back up a little bit and tell you kind of how I started running and kind of where I am now. So I grew up as an athlete. I played a lot of baseball. It was my main sport growing up, and played all the way through middle school and halfway through high school. At the time, I was getting a little burned out and switched over to playing tennis. I loved the sport of tennis. I got really into it and found I had a little bit of talent and was able to play and train at a fairly high level, mostly because I was around some players who were better than myself and was able to stay on court with them and if nothing else, be a good practice partner. But during that time, I think I developed a lot of fitness and skills I think that have helped transition fairly quickly into marathon training. I was able to cover a court really well, so I had great speed overall, at least on tennis court. And you have to be quick and change direction, but at the same time, in a tennis match, you have to be able to compete for 2 or 3 hours. So you have this unique ability to be fast, depending on the ball and the rally that you're in. But then you also have to be able to do that as for as long as the match might go. If you're in a long 2 or 3 set match, that can extend several hours. So I had a good base of fitness going into marathon training. It was always kind of a dream of mine to be able to run and complete a marathon. So I started out in the summer of 2022 with the goal of running and completing the marathon without stopping. Didn't have a time goal. I just wanted to be able to say that I had ran a marathon. The first few runs were really challenging. I didn't know how to pace myself, and I would really kind of run as hard as I could and really kind of get to that 3, 4, 5 mile mark before I couldn't run anymore, before it was really painful. And that was a really challenging way to run. It wasn't that fun. And kind of thinking back even to, my earliest association with running, as an athlete, outside of running, both in baseball and tennis, running was really used as a form of punishment. You weren't able to, if you didn't win a game or you made a mistake, you were running laps or doing sprints. So I didn't have a great association with running. And this, in the early stages of marathon training, we're bringing that back. It was tough. I'm training in the middle of the summer. It's hot. It's difficult, and I don't feel good. So that really kind of drew me into learning more. I knew there had to be a better way. So I started on YouTube and on Let's Run and reading different marathon training books, and really just any type of resource that I could find that talked about successful approaches to running marathons, and slowly started incorporating some of that into my own training. I think pretty quickly, once I was able to adjust my paces for the distance I was running, I started to see some really good results. So I was able to slow down a little bit. I was focusing a lot initially on my heart rate and making sure that I was just doing some really basic, simple things that I think now are almost common sense, but, make sure I had the right nutrition, that I was hydrating, and something shifted, right? Instead of going out for these runs that were really challenging and painful, now they became really fun. I was running faster times and doing it with less effort. And that was really exciting. So, about halfway through the build, started in June, July of 22, let's say a month into it, I started to be able to find a lot more comfort in running. And, that goal changed from just completing the marathon to putting a time on it. So at that point I was thinking, I think I can do this in maybe 3.5 hours. A few weeks later, my training continued to improve, and I learned a lot more at this time also about running and made a really ambitious goal of trying to go sub 3 in my first marathon and hit a Boston qualifying time. I knew it was really ambitious and probably fairly unlikely, but I wanted to give it a shot, knowing that, set a high goal, and if I happen to make it, great. If not, I would learn a lot and I could use that and build for potentially another marathon. Fast forward to the Richmond Marathon, and in November of 2022, I went out. The day was a little bit warm, but I found a pace that was comfortable, and was able to finish relatively strong. The last 6 miles were a pain that I hadn't felt before. Aerobically, I felt fairly strong, but my legs were heavy, my calves were tightening up and quite painful. But I was able to push through and ultimately run a 2:47. And it was such a feeling of accomplishment, both completing the race, but being able to, hit that Boston qualifying time. Looking back, I think it was, the time was great and obviously incredibly satisfying. But I think maybe what I'm most proud of was just thinking about the consistency, facing a new challenge, a new sport, and learning a lot and overcoming different obstacles throughout that time period. And that really hooked me on the sport. I loved the environment. The race was incredible. But I realized that there was, at least I wanted to think that there was a lot more room for improvement. So I was immediately started looking for other races and wanted to challenge myself to see how fast I could run. And since that time, I've ran 6 different marathons. I've ran an ultra marathon, and I've done a few half marathons as well. With each race, I've been able to learn a little bit more about training, how my body responds to different types of runs. And I think just the consistency over the last 2 years, I've been able to slowly take time off each one of these distances. Ultimately to where earlier this year in 24 in Houston, I was able to run a 2:29 marathon, and that's my current PR. I'm running the fall marathon in October, and I would love to set a new PR. I'm just starting the build on that race, and I don't have a specific time yet. And I'll talk more about that race, my goals, at least at a high level, and my training build in further videos. But at least in this video, I want to just kind of give a background of kind of my own story, and also just kind of lay out maybe some of my views for this channel. In addition to talking about my fall build, the marathon, and also just documenting the progress of that training up into the race, and hopefully, breaking down the race when it happens. I also want to talk about maybe just, some things that have helped me get from that first day of training 2 years ago to how I got to where I am now, from being able to start running and again, just chipping that time away to where I am now. I'd like to talk a little about gear. I definitely love shoes and technology. So, I'd be happy to talk about what I found that's worked well for me. Talk about nutrition. I've learned a decent amount. I've worked with a nutritionist for a period of time. She actually was a nutritionist for a few NFL teams. So she was an incredible resource and helped me dial in some of my nutrition, given kind of what my goals were during various times of the year. So happy to share some of the things that I found that I responded to well and have found that has helped my training. And then also talk about just other things, whether it's just running culture or just interest, training methods, approaches, but also just leave it up to the audience, leave it up to you. If there's something that you have a question about, love to be able to interact and to be able to, talk about, maybe if I have any experience with it, how I've approached that situation, and if I found some success, be able to share that with you. So feel free to comment. I would love for you to subscribe to this video channel. This is my first time doing a vlog, really kind of get into any really video editing. So I'd like to think that, although this first one may not be great, over time, hopefully the videos become more engaging, more interesting to watch, and that my video editing skills will improve as well. But I'm really looking forward to documenting, this fall build into the marathon in October, and also learning and having just a great conversation with all of you. So stay tuned, and look forward to talking to you all and more in the next video.